Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. I'm State Representative Chris Boss. I represent the 51st District, which includes suburban Lake and Cook County. I'm here today to discuss a growing problem that is affecting more and more communities across our state every day, the out-of-control rise in violent crime. This type of violent crime is sprawling into communities where most of us thought it was unthinkable, or at very least, very rare. And it's getting worse in communities that had been making headway to reduce crime. In one of the communities I represent, a couple was recently carjacked at gunpoint in a mall parking lot. In another community, at another mall, smash and grabs have been increasing. One of my own staff members had their neighborhood put on high alert as police were searching for violent carjacking and car breaking into suspects. The communities I'm talking about are Vernon Hills, Deer Park, Lake Zurich. They used to be places that many of us didn't even bother to lock the car doors or front doors to their homes. But now local police are making a point to warn people that they have to be on guard. Whether some of our legislative colleagues want to admit it or not, the General Assembly has to bear the blame for this out-of-control rise in crime. When the legislator passes bills that expand failed bail policies, that make it easier for criminals to get back on the street, when the legislator passes bills that embolden criminals and state's attorneys who refuse to hold violent offenders accountable, or when the legislator passes bills signaling to our police officers that we no longer have their backs. When the legislator does these things, we should not be surprised when crime is out of control and people are living in fear. Ensuring public safety is one of the most basic functions that we in the legislative body do, whether it's protecting children from abusers or families from carjackers. But too often, the General Assembly and the governor of Illinois have put politics ahead of public safety. We must change that. Speaker Welch promised action earlier this year, but here we are, less than 3 weeks left before our scheduled adjournment, and nothing has happened. Meanwhile, bills that Republicans have offered have been ignored. The Police and Fire Committee met one time to say, we're not meeting. It's time to signal loud and clear that criminals will face punishment. We fully support our police officers, and we will make sure that every family and every community feels safe. I'll now turn it over to my colleague, State Representative Patrick Windhorst.
Good morning. I'm Patrick Windhorst, State Representative in the 118th District, which is all or parts of the southernmost 11 counties of our state. I'm a resident of Metropolis and Massac County, and I previously served as State's Attorney in Massac County from 2004 to 2018. First, I'd like to review some disturbing statistics that were made available by the Chicago Tribune and WTTW earlier this month. In 2022 alone, 112 people in Chicago have been murdered. The murder rate in Chicago is at the same point this year as it was last year. In 2021, Chicago reached a level not seen in 25 years, as nearly 800 people were murdered. The likelihood of a new murder record being set in Chicago seems almost a certainty. Violent crime is up 4% on the year, and there have been a 31% increase in overall property crime in 2022, following a 4-year decline in such crimes dating back to 2018. Also, these increases are after historic reductions in violent crime from the early 1990s to the mid-2010s. The attitude and policies endorsed by the Democratic supermajority and signed by Governor Pritzker have led to lessened penalties for criminal offenses and a removal of immediate consequences for those who violate some laws. Their policies have also hindered the police from doing their jobs in enforcing the law. We've seen murderers and shootings increase. We've seen the videos of the mob smashing windows and grabbing retail items on the Magnificent Mile. We've seen carjackings and theft rings thrive. On the first day of this spring session, in early January, I took to this very microphone to call for the repeal of the Safety Act. I have filed a House resolution, H.R. 598, and a bill, H.R. 4499, that would lead to the repeal of the Safety Act. The Safety Act had little to no public or Republican involvement. The bill passed the Senate in the middle of the night and then passed the House a few hours later in the waning moments of the 101st General Assembly. I was one of only 2 legislators who were allowed to ask questions of the Safety Act's sponsor before Democrats shut off debate on the bill. It passed, and Governor Pritzker signed it. House Republicans warned that recent bail reform efforts in 2017 had led to increased recidivism, and that the end of cash bail in 2023 would increase repeat offenders and cause major issues for our police. House Republicans warned that the Safety Act contained harmful financial impacts and unfunded mandates for local communities and police forces. In fact, just this week, the Westfield Police Department in Clark County permanently disbanded, citing the Safety Act's provisions and the costs therein for its dissolution. House Republicans warned changing legal standards for use of force for police officers would hinder them from doing their jobs. We also warned against allowing unlimited, anonymous complaints against police officers. As the provisions of the Safety Act have taken effect, we have seen the job of law enforcement officers become more dangerous and harder to do. Criminals are acting more emboldened than ever before. Repeat offenders are already being let out of jail with little to no cash bail, and the provisions of the Safety Act have only exacerbated the problem. We must change direction. Our citizens deserve to live in safe communities and neighborhoods where they can live, work, play, and raise their families without the fear of violent criminals being let back on the streets just hours after their last offense. Speaker Welch said legislation was necessary to address spikes in carjackings and organized retail theft. Governor Pritzker and the Speaker both indicated that at the start of 2022, that they would prioritize adequate funding for law enforcement to ensure police officers are properly trained and supported. To this point, the Democratic crime prevention package has yet to materialize. I am worried we are headed for a repeat of last January, when negotiations and discussions were occurring only among the members of the majority party, the very same party that gave us the Safety Act, without having any public or Republican involvement in those discussions. Republicans have introduced a package of bills designed to keep families safe and properly fund our police, but the Democratic supermajority has yet to allow a vote on such a piece of legislation. We filed the legislation necessary to improve public safety. Time is running out for this session. Now is the time to pass the bills that we are sponsoring to make it happen. I'll now turn it over to Representative Tim Butler.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Patrick. My name is Tim Butler. I'm a state representative from the 87th District. I live here in Springfield. I'm honored to be here with Representative Boss and Representative Windhorst, and I will say that there's no one better in the legislature at addressing these issues than a former prosecutor and elected state's attorney to talk about the problems with crime in the state of Illinois. What I'm here today to talk about is something that I think is very relevant to this conversation. It's my legislation that I introduced, House Bill 5712, that would allow the citizens of Cook County to recall their state's attorney. It's a very simple recall piece of legislation that's similar to other bills across the country or other bills that have been introduced in Illinois. The citizens of Cook County would have the ability, by signing petitions, registered voters, equaling at least 5% of the previous vote for state's attorney, would be able to go to the Cook County Clerk's office and petition for a recall. If they meet that threshold and it's certified by the county clerk, then a recall election would move forward in Cook County, and the citizens of Cook County would have the ability to at least vote on recalling their state's attorney. I don't take this lightly. I think recall is certainly a tall order for a lot of public offices. We don't see it, honestly, very often across the country because it usually is a high bar to meet. But I think the people of Cook County, when we see what has happened with an out-of-control state's attorney that puts criminals before victims, the people of Cook County want to change, and they want it now. They don't want to have to wait the 4 years before the Cook County State's Attorney is up for election again. They want to be able to vote her out now. And so that's what my legislation does, is give the ability of people of Cook County to address the situations that these two have talked about, the situations that many of us have witnessed that have happened in Chicago and Cook County over the last couple years. We often spend time in Chicago, and the places that I stay in the River North area usually is the hotel where I stay at. There's been murders, there's been carjackings, there's been thugs that have pulled people out of their cars right outside of the hotel that I stay at usually. And I think all of us as Illinoisans, all 13 million Illinoisans from Chicago to Cairo should be concerned about that, because what happens in Chicago and what happens in Cook County does have an impact across this entire state. And that's why I'm hopefully giving the ability for the people of Cook County to make that decision to recall their state's attorney. I just want to read to you one of the numerous emails and phone calls that I've received since introduction of this bill, largely from citizens, almost solely from citizens of Chicago and Cook County that I've received input from. This person sent me an email Saturday, March 12th, that said, "As a Chicago resident, I want to thank you so much for having the courage and diligence for filing the bill to help us get rid of Kim Fox. We live on the northwest side and have seen a substantial increase in crime, here so much that we have to conceal carry outside our house just to shovel snow or take a walk around the block. Please alert us when witness slips are taken. I will make sure this is circulated in my neighborhood. Thanks again." They have to conceal carry to shovel their sidewalks. That's what it's come to in the city of Chicago. And I think the citizens should have the ability to change their prosecutor to get someone in there that will actually combat crime. With that,